Oh, fuck. Well, I would be lying if I said that my inspiration to do this video wasn't the result of something that is a complete and total bummer. RIP to the great Joey Jordison. Slipknot is undeniably one of my favorite bands of all time. I will say that while I haven't spent as much time listening to Slipknot over the past decade or so as I did when I was in high school, I still go and see them live every time they play. They were, very, very important to me when I was a kid, 7th, 8th grade. I had already listened to other bands that were more extreme prior to Slipknot becoming a thing, like my dad's super in the metal, so I had already heard some stuff. I know a lot of people that are my age have this experience of Slipknot being one of the heaviest things that they had ever heard at the time that they heard it. And, for me, that wasn't necessarily the case. I wouldn't say that Slipknot was the heaviest thing that I had ever heard, but I can say that when the first Slipknot album came out, the overall presentation was undeniably probably the coolest thing I had ever heard or seen. Because, it's one thing to write heavy music. There's plenty of bands that have been writing heavy music for a long time, way longer than Slipknot had been at the time that they came onto the scene. But the thing that I don't think some people give Slipknot credit for, at least people that are kind of naysayers of the band, they are undeniably some of the best fucking songwriters in the genre ever. And nothing highlights it better than the album sitting right next to me. Slipknot's second release, Iowa. Now, don't get me wrong, I love the first album. I love the third album. I like pretty much every album in Slipknot's discography, if we're being totally transparent. But Iowa is a motherfucker in terms of its level of intensity, its musicianship, and again, the songwriting. There is so much stickiness to this in terms of hooks and riffs, and it was undeniably probably the blueprint for the next fucking 2 decades of music after this. There aren't many bands that sounded like Slipknot, if any bands that really sounded like Slipknot. Like I said, they probably weren't the heaviest thing that ever happened. I still think probably the heaviest album that I had heard at that time, and probably still to this day, it's a heavier album than anything Slipknot has ever done, which would be Fear Factory's Obsolete, or even Demanufacture. Both of those albums are objectively heavier albums, right? And those came out before Slipknot had even released their self-titled release. But the songwriting, the overall musicianship, and their contribution to the world of metal or rock music in general is just fucking undeniable. I think I've said undeniable several times already, but, that's just, I can't think of a better word for Slipknot, I remember when the first album came out, and even probably around the time Iowa came out too, I was still in high school, and there were a lot of people that I knew that were older that, just talked shit because well, one was fuck nu metal, and I think Slipknot has definitely transcended being just a simply nu metal band. I think that, they're pretty much the blueprint for deathcore, right? And, say what you want about deathcore, but those bands have really dominated the extreme metal genre for well over a decade, going on 2 decades now, depending on how far back you want to stretch it. It really all starts with fucking Slipknot, man. But the costumes, the gimmick, and it's give me a fucking break. I don't need somebody telling me that, Slipknot is a gimmick band wearing a fucking Kiss t-shirt, which is something that has happened to me before. I like Kiss enough, I guess. Not really. I don't know. I never really gave a shit. It's not my generation, but Slipknot was my generation, It's have some empathy for the fact that, I was 13 the first time I heard fucking Slipknot, so of course I was gonna shit myself. Just the same way that I'm sure people that are of a different generation the first time they heard Kiss and they were a little kid, of course you're gonna fucking freak out, you know? So there's a lot of misunderstanding that I've seen happen there. And even now, after, you know, the untimely death of Joey Jordison, I'm even seeing, you know, some people being kind of shitty about Slipknot then. I don't know, man. I think that, you know, if you don't like a band, I get it. But I don't think that, you know, you should use somebody's passing to just, like, exercise your right to talk shit on a band. I think that's kind of shitty, but shitty people are gonna be shitty, so there's nothing I could do about that. And I think most people that are genuine fans of music, that have like ever given the time of day to listen to Slipknot, listen to Joey Jordison's playing, or anybody that has, you know, really been able to digest and observe, you know, the impact that Slipknot has had on the world of metal and hard rock over the past 20 years, I think that they, even if they aren't a fan of the band, can at least recognize the talent. And if not, hey, there's nothing I could do about that. I think that this is more of a video kind of just about early Slipknot, not necessarily Iowa. But if you've never really given Slipknot a chance, and if you are, like, you know, a fan of metal, I think that you should go back and listen to this, because I guarantee you, while maybe you weren't ready for this cutting edge raw shit in the early 2000s, there's a good chance that your palate as a listener, if you are somebody that did start getting into, you know, more modern death metal or deathcore or metalcore, you know, over the past 20 years after they released this album, I think it would be an interesting experiment for you to go back and listen to it and hear how this really was the blueprint for so much shit that followed it, and maybe you just overlooked it. It's possible. But if it's not your thing, it's not your thing. I totally get it. I just think that, you know, the songwriting should not be overlooked. I think that their contributions should not be overlooked. I think that there is a reason why 20 years later, you know, it's 2021, so it's been well over 20 years, they're still touring, playing huge venues, running music festivals, putting out great records still. There's a reason why they're still on top of the fucking game. You know, it's hard to do that, to be able to transcend the like DIY lifestyle that even some of the biggest bands in metal still have to deal with, to be able to get to that next level and maintain it for as long as a band that like Slipknot has, is really, it really speaks for itself. They're, you know, I know obviously everything has its fucking haters, you know, there's people that don't like fucking Sunshine, there's people that don't like pizza, there's people that don't like fucking mashed potatoes. I don't know. Some people are just wild. What can you do? Slipknot's tight. R.I.P. Joey Jordison. R.I.P. Paul Gray. I will always be looking forward to hearing new Slipknot music. And if you have not given Slipknot a listen in a long time, put on Iowa, especially if you're a fan of heavy metal. Don't think about if the gimmick bothers you. Don't focus on any of that. Just try to listen to it and fucking try to tell me that this is not one of the rawest, fucking most intense, catchy, fucking undeniably inspirational albums in the realm of heavy metal or even hard rock of the past 2 decades. You tell me that after giving this a listen, and hey, whatever. I'm just not gonna fucking believe you. So, with all that being said, I don't know. I'm gonna leave. I'm probably just gonna put this on and fucking headbang and enjoy my day. So you should enjoy your day too. Take care of yourselves and the people around you. Peace.